Welcome back to the Financial Autonomy Podcast. My name's Paul Benson, financial planner and practice principal at Guidance Financial Services. The high cost of housing in Australia is a well-documented problem without an easy solution. Building more homes is clearly a key piece of the puzzle, but that requires all sorts of hurdles to be jumped, plus the skilled workers available to get the construction done. And no existing homeowner wants to see the value of their property decline. It's fair to assume then that it's not going to get any easier for our kids to get on the home ownership ladder. With this awareness, the majority of the clients that I work with have as one of their objectives an ability to assist the kids with their first home deposit. This week in the podcast, I want to explore the options available if this is a goal of yours and the issues to consider to ensure that you don't put yourself at financial risk. There is certainly a balance to be struck here between generosity and personal financial security. Okay, let's dive in. There are four main ways that I see people assist their children get into the property market. These are gifting a lump sum, providing a loan, acting as guarantor, or co-buying a property. Let's work through the pros and cons of each of these. So number one is gifting a lump sum. By far the most common way to help children into the property market is simply to give them a gift. The great thing about this approach is its simplicity. It also shows a level of trust and respect for your adult children, which I think goes a long way. Something to think about if you have multiple children is whether the gift will be identical for each, where the timing of the gift is several years apart. If you give, for example, $100,000 to the first of your children when they're ready to buy, then your second child isn't ready to make that move until 5 years down the road, do you need to bump up the gift a little so that it has an equivalent impact? This is even more significant where you've got 3, 4 or 5 kids. There's no perfect answer here, but I can share that most people do indeed adjust the gift up a little to account for this. It is important, however, to ensure that you discuss this with the family, as you wouldn't want the first gift recipient to feel that the second one got some sort of favouritism. I sometimes hear of people being concerned about gifting due to worries about relationship breakdowns. The solution here is usually to provide a loan, which is the next item that we'll discuss. I do wonder, however, whether this worry is a bit overblown. In the event of a relationship breakdown, assets will be split, so it's not like your son or daughter will be left with nothing. And where there are grandchildren involved, I can't imagine you would really want your former son or daughter-in-law to be left destitute, which would undoubtedly be to the detriment of your grandchildren. With regards risk, the only issue here is ensuring you aren't excessively generous. Get your financial modelling updated to ensure your planned gift is affordable. Solution number 2 is to provide a loan. As just mentioned, the main reason for going down this path is concern about relationship breakdown. The parents providing the gift want to ensure that the funds are retained within the family. Back in 2023, October 4 to be precise, I interviewed lawyer Brian Mitchell about the intergenerational wealth transfer, and the topic of family loans was discussed. If you're thinking of heading down this path, you might want to scroll back a little bit and give that one a listen. Given the primary motivation for going with a loan rather than a gift is protection in the event of a relationship breakdown, then ensuring such a loan would hold up to court scrutiny is paramount. Things like having a formal loan agreement and charging interest are key elements to meeting this requirement. This adds complexity and formality which might be uncomfortable in a family situation, but without these steps, whilst you might consider the transaction to be a loan, from the outside it's likely to be viewed as a gift. A third solution is for you to act as the guarantor. Sometimes you want to be able to help your children get into the property market, but simply don't have the spare cash available to give them. I see this most frequently where parents have separated and both have had to re-establish themselves, often carrying a mortgage quite late into life. The clear risk with going a guarantor on your child's loan is that should they fall into financial difficulty, you'll be on the hook for the debt. There are different arrangements available, with some limiting the amount of the potential liability that you face. So certainly if you're thinking of heading down this path, see what's possible there and certainly be clear on how much you're potentially liable for. In some instances, your home might be taken as security to support the new loan for your child. I have seen an instance where this caused headaches down the road as the parents wanted to sell up and move into a retirement village, but were prevented from doing so because their home needed to be retained in order to secure their child's loan. To me, acting as guarantor would be a last resort, but it is an option that's available. So another option is to buy a property with your son or daughter. It could be 50-50, but not necessarily so. This approach would certainly help protect wealth within the family, and there would be no need for charging interest, as would be the case with the loan solution. Obtain advice on the best ownership structure from your lawyer if you're considering going down this path, and think through what the ultimate exit strategy will be. Is this a stepping stone home that your child would expect to grow out of in the future? If that were the case, then there's perhaps an obvious exit point for you. But if it's a long-term property that they perhaps plan on renovating or extending, can you afford to have your money tied up in this asset, generating no income, perhaps for a very long time? And if your son and daughter do want to undertake renovations, will you contribute to the budget to reflect your share of the property? Beyond these 4 primary ways to support your children get into the property market, there are 2 other things I think worth considering. Firstly, ensure that whatever gift or loan you're providing is affordable. You've worked hard for your money and you won't be doing your kids any favours if you then become financially dependent on them later in life. Secondly, whilst the primary consideration is usually about helping with the initial home deposit, your support need not be a one and done event. Perhaps, for instance, you make a contribution to the initial home purchase, but then 5 or 10 years down the road, make a further early inheritance gift when your children are raising their own children and perhaps under maximum financial stress. By leaving this assistance until later in life, you have a greater clarity as to whether you have savings in excess of your needs, and perhaps ensure that your children aren't disincentivised from behaving financially prudently. Well, thanks for listening. If you've recently discovered our podcast, we also produce a weekly email called Gaining Choice, which is free to subscribe to. It contains a current market update, links to our content released during the week, and also a quiz or a puzzle to get your brain ticking over. Visit our website, guidancefs.com.au, and scroll down to the bottom to add your name to the list. Bye for now.